Thank you everyone for still staying with us. You're still watching AM Cafe and we are moving on to another conversation entirely. And that's talking about analysis of Nigeria's 10.33 trillion 2020 budget. Let me give you a little bit of a background. Nigeria will use nearly a quarter of its 2020 budget to repay debts the government owes locally and internationally. President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday presented a spending plan of 10.3 trillion naira to the National Assembly, making next year's proposed budget the country's highest ever. And these are the trending issues that I'll be talking about this morning. We have a guest in the house, the public affairs analyst, Mr. Adeyemi Ademuyiwa. It's good to have you here this morning.
It's my pleasure to be
It's
here.
really great to have you on this platform.
I'm
Yes, let me start off from this way. The People's Democratic Party has actually come out to say that when you look at how this budget came about, that it is meant to impoverish more people, saying that there are some key areas that the government did not focus on, such as education, health, and the rest of it. When you look at these instances itself, do you think that the government erred by coming up with this and saying that this is what it feels that would work for the economy for 2020?
Actually, going by what people are saying about the budget itself, I can see to an extent they are right, to some extent, and they are not. What I'm saying is that if you look at the percentage increase compared to the 2019 national budget, which has not been fully implemented, is high. And why people are saying this, that if government is putting budget in place, there are some key areas, as you said, that government have to look into that will trickle down to the populace. Now, when I look at, I go through it. I was looking at some things. Something baffles me up, because when you look at it, it is expected. We are talking of expected revenue over expected expenditure. See that there is gap of almost 2 point something trillion. That is the revenue government have projected, and what they are expected to expend is not balanced, because we have deficit budget balance and they have to borrow. Now, where I'm going is that if you look at that area, it's true. Going by let me start from health sector. I went to some place last 2 weeks just to advocate, because in budget we are trying to advocate for all these public projects that will enhance health facilities. We discovered most of the primary health care center, they are not accessible. See, primary health care center, let me start with that. I want to streamline to health. It has to be like what Redeem people are doing. From every 5 minutes we see Redeem Church. That is, from every ward there should be a standard health center that people will access.
So are we saying that there are not enough, there's paucity of funds?
They want the funds, yes.
Coming into the health sector. But how do you track this budget itself? Now, if it has been implemented, it's been disbursed, you are from budget, for instance.
Yes.
How do you track some of these spendings? What does your organization do in terms of ensuring that this budget gets into the right channel itself?
Actually, in Nigeria, this thing comes every year. So when the budget has been enacted, we have access of getting the figures. So we sensitize people based on the locality and different local government areas that this social project is going to be. They have nominated this project on behalf, but the case is very, very serious, because in Nigeria many projects, your colleagues know about it, they will not specify them. They will just put it so and so local government, whereby we're having large and many wards. But we still have to do what? To preach the gospel.
But you don't track the
let's talk
budget.
about the area of health that you've mentioned earlier. Health is collecting 46 billion naira. They are here marking 46 billion naira. While we have water resources, 82 billion. The Niger Delta Development Commission, 81 billion. I now start looking at the priorities. Do we actually have water when it comes to water resources?
We don't.
And here health is taking 46, while water resources is taking 82 billion.
Let me put this thing straight to us. The problem we're having that every stakeholders in this country lack monitoring. For example, this on Monday, I went to one place in this Oyo state. We call that place Ajinopa at Orire. There is multi-million abandoned water project dam that can even create a job opportunity and bring development to that.
Then why are people not looking into that direction?
The problem is that after budget being implemented, most of these budgets are not fully implemented, and after it they have commissioned it, they just left there. And it's because people are not that anxious to know how our political officers are representing us. But I know as the thing is going on, people are beginning to aware that there are some certain questions we need to ask those who are representing us. If you look at the education sector now, that is the foundation of development. I think everything boils down to, every development in the country boils down to education. The way we are taking our education sector is
in the budget. Do you think they are not being fair to the education sector?
I think according to UNESCO said that for a good country economy, they have to spend up to 26% of their national budget on the education.
I asked that question because as I now emphasis on basic education, and they're devoting a large chunk to basic education as it were. That was why I asked you that question.
Like if you here around this place, I was just coming, I saw one public school. It's nothing to write home about, and it's public school.
Okay, let's come down to the debt itself. Debt services, 2.5 trillion naira as in debt, and in 2020 the government will be making about 8.5 trillion naira. If you look at the magnitude of the debt itself, is almost equal to what the government will be generating in 2020. How does the government intend to service this debt? And are we saying, as a matter of fact, there won't be more debt that the government is going to be going into? And what's the implication of all of this to some of these projects that you talked about, that you're tracking?
There are more implications to that. Because as the trend goes now, even the debt will continue to be increasing. You know why? Because most of this, in this expenditure, if you look at it very well, there was a time we were clamoring that government should cut its expenditure on even the 3 tiers of government. If you look at how much is allocated for the National Assembly and all those on parastatals, it's too much. You know, this is an economy whereby the minority are collecting and receiving large percentage of money at the expense of others. If somebody was proposing that even the legislator should be collecting based on the sittings, they should cut when just an honorable is collecting up to 36 million per month, and other allowances are there, and this is part of the expenditure.
Now, why do you think that the government is not looking towards that direction as it were?
That is what we are saying, that government is not that fair enough. They need to cut down even their, or if they want to. Okay, for example, let me say the world president. It is by force the guy is collecting $1. He said don't want to collect any, that he want to serve his needs.
So how does the Nigerian society pressure the government to actually reduce overhead cost of the lawmakers, like Indeed pointed out, and of course other 7 government officials, to cut out some of their excesses? How does the society pressure them? What is budget doing, for instance?
For instance, budget that will be saying that government should try. Let me shift it to this side. There is one thing some of our parastatals are doing that is affecting many people, but people doesn't know. Because when government borrow money, all of us pays for it. That's it. Indirectly or directly. Is that most of the funds they are borrowing, they are using for all this project or what are you, they are not projects that can trickle down to the general masses. For example, in 2018, we have over 50-something% that are allocated for empowerment projects.
So how do we pressure government? I know that there are a number of pressure groups.
Yes.
What are they doing? If you're talking about international communities,
the work is
not having this kind of...
The work is general thing. Like we are doing ours, the other NGOs, other CNSO, other parastatals like NOA and other organization, we have to continue mounting pressure on them.
That will take me to another question entirely. The Senate Minority Leader described it as a budget of taxation, and people have been talking about the
increased VAT.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts on this?
My thought is that it is going to bring a much burden on the populace. Fine, that is very good. Even when we compare develop economic taxation, as in percentage of development economic taxation to Nigeria. Nigeria is even low. But when people pay tax, there are some basic things that people have to see that they are in place, they are in good shape. I get in that. In UK, they are paying up to 20%. But now that the tax that people are even paying, they have not felt the effect. And you want to increase the tax.
Even with all the infrastructure development and other
yes,
areas,
and yes, no, there is no way it will affect the generality of the people. Like what you are saying before I came, you are saying that the societal problem, it causes a lot of things. People will be, that is why it can lead to what we call tax evasion, whereby people will not be that happy.
But the IMF has actually supported this increase in VAT.
You know why IMF said that? I think 2 years ago or a year, IMF advises Nigeria to reduce the rate at which Nigeria is borrowing money, because for every naira we are borrowing, we are paying almost 63 kobo for every 1 naira. Now, that is what my sister said about the debt servicing. Now, when you are paying up to that amount on just a single naira, now talking of billions or trillions, now see how, and that thing continues, because in Nigeria we cannot have a balanced budget. You can never have a balanced budget. I think it's going on. Do you get my point now? So there is no way. That is what IMF will advise us to do, to increase our taxation mechanism. And if you look at it very, very well, if we have a good tax mechanism in Nigeria, they can achieve that. Okay, just a person is having almost 20 cars in his yard. If the person is being taxed very well, he cannot or she cannot.
That takes me to the issue of this social intervention program. The president has said that they will continue with the social intervention program. But the question is, have we seen the effects of the last one that they did? Why should they continue? Is it actually going through? Are the people at the grassroots actually benefiting from these social intervention programs?
Social intervention. We advise government to continue. You get the social intervention program is good, but one thing that anything government is laying hands upon, government should make sure that the monitoring process, we need monitoring process so that everything can work out well. It's not easy, it's not possible for government to be at everywhere. I get in that. It's just no, we are talking of paper. It's not possible for government to be at everywhere. I know government is trying its best, but about this tax of a thing, government needs to increase its tax mechanism, very strong tax mechanism, so that when we introduce payee, let me put it that way, when we are using payee tax mechanism, it's very good. If you are collecting 10,000, I'm collecting 5,000. If you are charging me 10%, you cannot charge me 10%. If you are charging this 10%, that's not payee. I get it. So government need to streamline this tax, because that is the area they are trying to get.
How does it strengthen human capital development? Because the president actually said that the budget is geared towards ensuring that it strengthens human capital development and of course social intervention program and the rest of it. But the aspect of human capital development itself, how does that work? When we look at debt servicing, for instance, there's a lot of debt to be met with.
Yes.
We also look at paucity of funds in different sectors of the economy. Now we're talking about infrastructure. How does it translate into developing human capital here?
Infrastructure will really translate. If good, let me know. I'm a field worker, so I have evidences. Like 4 days ago, I went to oversee this road, Ibadan Ilorin Road. It's a very good capital project, and it's still going on. Many parastatals come there to watch over it. At the same time, I went to Oyo Alafin here. There's one Abadan big hospital. Maybe if you have passed through road, all those things, if after the implementation is well implemented, is well equipped, and the good staff are there, it will come down, or it really.
So you actually feel that the government means well when it said that there's going to be massive human capital development with the budget itself. Do you see that happening?
To an extent, I see it. To an extent, I see it happening. But it is works of all of us. Works of all of us in sense that all three tiers of government have to work in hand in hand. Okay, then the issue of continuity. Let me put in that way. You know, if you don't do with continuity, it will lead
What
to,
do you mean by continuity?
good, it will lead to wasteful of resources. For example, the hospital I tell you that I went to, I heard that it was one governor that implemented it, but he was unable to finish it. When another come, because it belonged to another party, he can't what? He can't finish it, and it is there idle, wasting of funds. There's one road at Akala, they call that road Akala Expressway at that new garage. The road has not finished. And if you look at that place now, if you see what that road, you see, we are talking about infrastructure. After that road has been constructed, it has brought many things to life over there. People getting to earn money. People get different things. I get it. When infrastructure is placed and it's well done, maybe, you know, there are some projects that maybe it has a long.
But do you think that the priority list of the government in this budget itself is actually geared towards the people? Let's look at what is proposed for pension. For instance, it said 3.6 trillion naira for personal and pension costs, given that the recurrent bill an increase of 620.28 billion naira. But the pension cost itself is really an issue. We saw a man at a point in time. He was accused of laundering several billions of naira of pension fund. And of course, somehow he found himself back to government, but now we're hearing that he's been picked up again. When we have instances like this where government treasury is easier for some people within in the public cycle to siphon this money, now the government is telling us that this amount of money is being pushed into pension. And if you go on the street under the bridges, you still see old military men actually crying foul that they've not been able to get their pension. Even when they have it in their account, to assess it is another problem. You talk about the issue of monetization, they are going to get a lot. How many of them even have this alert? You see them, they are in fact in a dilapidated state. You see some of them throwing up right in the bank. When you have instances like this, where is this money going into?
See,
you know, we talk about the issue of MENA, for instance.
Let me say that our government are not being, they are not fair enough in that area, and they are not that transparent to us. If you look at that pension of it even boils down to one thing you discussed before, that now, you know, in a well-organized economy, they believe that by 63 you are supposed to retire. That is what we call security after work or after services. When you know that in a country whereby you are working for government, after when you retire, nothing comes from it. That is why people begin to be what? To be cutting down their age. Like we said that, okay, for example, there was a time whereby people were not paid in some states, many states in Nigeria. Just let's look into a situation whereby a father and a mother and a teacher, and they have 2 or 3 children. 2 is in a higher institution, 1 is secondary school. How do you think those parents can go? That's why the government is not fair enough. Or let me say, government doesn't have enough data.
So who are we blaming for that?
I will blame government. Because if you are looking for some, see, if an economy wants to grow, the old government just needs just 4 areas. I used to say it. When government have placed its priority in that 4 areas, the economy.
What are these 4
that
areas?
takes me to the okay.
We talk of social amenities, like what we said, that the social amenities, the security, law and order, then infrastructure. When these things are in place, you know, we are talking about public and private sector. When these things are in place, private sector will come and things will boom.
That takes me to this issue of job creation, because the federal government harped on the need for job creation, and the question is, how will they be able to implement this? They have said that 10 million jobs, 100 million jobs will be created for the people. Is there an enabling environment to actually provide this?
There is no enabling environment. That is what, and I will tell you, and I will continue to tell you, that the value of our currency, if care is not taken, it will continue to be decreasing. What creates an enabling environment is this infrastructure and amenities we are talking about. Okay, for example, now we know that many areas we have epileptic power supply, bad roads, and those are the things that facilitate investment or that will attract investors to come into your country. When investors know that this country, they have good power supply, they have good roads, they have good communication, they have security, people will come in. But when these things are not in place, somebody was saying it's on Twitter, if there is one place in Lagos, if you see how that road work is very, very bad. People cannot have, after 8 hours or 10 hours work there. There is not an enabling environment. Let me put it that way. There is not an enabling environment.
So do you think that this budget can lead the economy out of its present challenges? To some let's say to less extent, because you know when we are talking about building an economy to a very good status, it's a gradual process. That's why I said that the money government is accrued for some expense. If you look at that expenditure, the money government is accrued to that area. There are some loopholes whereby some percentage have to be shifted to some parastatals than to where they are. Like you said, that pension of 18 it's not good enough. Where some people have worked for almost 40-something years, and after the service year, they can't get paid.
Okay, let me now go to the issue of revenue drive. Do you think this government have any idea when it comes to revenue drive? Because we keep seeing it in the papers. Look at the agricultural sector, how many people are plowing into it. If we go to our mineral resources, for instance, how much more are we gaining from all of this development as we go? Do they have revenue drive in looking at what the government has on plans on paper now? And of course, its priority list. Do you think that there is any revenue drive anywhere?
There is. It depends.
What are the factors that make you say that?
Let's know after oil sector. When we're talking about non-oil sector, where government generates revenue, everything boils down to taxation. You know, there are some people in this country that what they are, if they should tax them, it generates another.
I know you have so many things to tell us, but because of our time, they already tell us that we have to wrap up now. Thank you so much, Mr. Adeyemi Ademuyiwa, for coming on AM Cafe. He's a public affairs analyst, and he has been sharing his thought with us on the budget. This is where I'll be wrapping it up from Ibadan Studios. So tomorrow, I am Anu Akomolafe.
And I'm Golabo Female School. Do have a pleasant day.